Welcome to the Daily Freedomist Show featuring Paul Gordon Collier, that's me, coming at you live on the Black and Gold Freedomist YouTube channel and also from Freedomist.com, and we encourage you to go to Freedomist.com where you will get news and intelligence for free people, accurate, timely. Being free to prosper and live as you choose isn't something that just happens. You make it happen. But to make it happen, you need to be armed with insights, knowledge, resources, and credible analysis of the events shaping your world and your life. And that's what we do. And you can get all the stories that we're going to cover plus more by going to freedomist.com/NW, or you can get the Freedomist News Watch report sent to your email daily if you sign up for the email list. But if not, go to Newswatch page on the right-hand corner of Freedomist.com, where you get the Freedomist.com/NW. And you can scroll through it. You can see all the stories that we will be talking about today, plus so many more. As you can see, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, but let's just briefly look at a couple of stories that we won't be talking about today because we don't have time. Calls for John Kerry to resign increase as MSM closes ranks to protect him. That's a topic report. We won't get to that, and we won't get to California Governor Gavin Newsom loses corporate attempt to fend off recall election challenge, nor will we get to, where is it here? Well, actually, we will get to some of these. So, well, there's a number of other stories here that we won't get to. But let's get to the stories that we're actually going to get to. So let's go and get ready for our first story of the day, folks. And by the way, just a little heads up here. We actually have an extra story today. We'll be going 7 stories. One story we'll be doing at the very end is something that has been written by my brother, identical twin, Bill Collier, the editor of the Freedomist. So we'll get to that as well. Joy Behar caught dead-naming Caitlyn Jenner. Will she be canceled as well? This is from our Editor's Choice report. And our top, I'm calling this the woke champion, Joy Behar, caught on hot mic dead-naming Caitlyn Jenner. But we're going to call the video version of this White Queen of Woke, caught betraying woke by dead-naming Caitlyn Jenner. I'm particularly proud of that title, I gotta say, and comment down below if that's true, if it's an awesome title, that is. So with that, we have our first thing here. It's from Louder with Crowder, and I always like to give this caveat: Louder with Crowder is absolutely, it doesn't, Politics USA is on the left, the quote unquote left is as awful as Louder with Crowder, but you could say Louder with Crowder is as awful as them. But sometimes Politics USA has truth, and sometimes Louder with Crowder has truth. Even, well, I want to call them horrible monsters. That would be judgmental. I don't want to do that. But even unreliable sources, if you will, can be reliable sources at times, even if accidentally. In this case, well, this actually really fits with his whole shrillery narrative, angels and demons narrative that these types of folks push. But there's a lot of truth to this. Now, there is a video embed here, but it's of his whole show, and I'm not going to play part of that video embed. But what he says is, when is an insurrection not an insurrection? When the media can exploit it for political reasons. We expose how. Okay. Also, Joy Behar was busted misgendering Caitlyn Jenner. We pinpoint the exact moment she realizes she screwed up, and happy Lesbian Day of Visibility to all who celebrate. And we don't need to hear that. Let's see if we can get to where he's actually going to talk about Joy Behar. Yeah, here we go. Let's see what old Joy has to say here. The moment of the screw up here, the quote unquote screw up. There you go, Joy. Come on, Joy. Speak to me.
Well, I think I just didn't get enough sleep last night. I had no intention of mixing them up, and I tried to correct it immediately, but whatever.
3 times when talking
3
about
times?
it. Here's a clip.
3 times?
Yeah. Sonny, he's got this guy, Brad Pascal, running his campaign. What do you think
2.
about that? I mean, that guy was accused of using campaign funds to enrich himself. What?
Oh, boy, let's see.
That's who's running his campaign. Her campaign, rather.
3.
Yeah.
Okay, she's down.
Yeah.
Now, well, let's see what she says. Let's see what Sonny says. Because Sonny looked concerned there. Very concerned.
Right. I would go along with that. I think that he should, should take a seat
4 times.
and let somebody with the credentials take over. So first of all, let me apologize for my pronoun mix-up. I think I just didn't get enough sleep last night.
I didn't get enough sleep last night. Oh, please forgive me. Please forgive me.
Whatever, it just came out, so I'm sorry. Whatever.
Oh, could I have avoided the...
There you go. So the problem, of course, with the woke, I was listening to Dallas Willard today because somebody that I spoke to on the Meaning Code channel, she had recommended this video. Karen, by the way, if you're not subscribed to the Meaning Code channel, you should be. Awesome stuff going on. She's a fellow Christian. And he was talking about how when you live by the Spirit of the Lord, well, I don't want to misrepresent him, but in essence, when you live by the Spirit of the Lord, it leads you to, well, forgiveness, to grace. You're not judging people. Maybe I'm mixing him up with someone else, but you're either way. you're not judging people the way that the non-believer judges people. The way the non-believer judges people is they're looking to catch you. They're looking to condemn you, and they're looking to throw you in prison and keep you there for all eternity, because they themselves know that that's the fate that they face. Whereas in the Christian life, we judge in a spirit of discernment. Our judgment is brother, sister, or our friend, whatever the case might be. You're heading towards a disastrous path, and we want to let you see where you're heading, and we seek to restore you. Even when Paul talks about giving people over to the devils, the demons, the purpose of giving people over to the demons is for the restoration. It's a hope for the restoration. And in the case of the woke, whatever you want to call them, the spirit is to find the sinner, condemn the sinner, and make sure they pay the price. So Joy Behar is one of the biggest champions of the woke. That's why I'm calling this video the White Queen of Woke, caught betraying woke, because she is the White Queen of Woke, well, one of many White Queens of Woke, the pretenders, the wannabe priest kings or priest queens of the woke. Most of them are highly white. Some of the most self-righteous of the quote-unquote woke are the white millionaire billionaire types are hangers-on of these millionaire billionaire types that want to own the righteousness of wokeness so that they can cut off their enemies, from their competition, basically. But to them, competition and enemy are the same thing. And here she is caught in the act of basically violating the rules of wokeness. Now the question is, will she be condemned? Will she be destroyed? Well, she won't be yet. And so long as she does not pose a threat to higher level priest queens or priest kings, she'll probably get away with this egregious error of dead-naming Caitlyn Jenner on national TV. Not once, but 4, but maybe 5 times before she finally corrected. And then she comes back with, yeah, but forgive me. Now she wants forgiveness. Now she wants grace and mercy, but she offers no grace and mercy to others. This is the parable of the debtor, the person who the master says, you owe me money, he's going to throw him and his family in jail for owing him money. And the guy's, please have mercy. Okay, I'll have mercy. Christ, this is what Christ has done for us on the cross. He's given us mercy. We have a glory already received. And the Joy Behar is the debtor that has this forgiveness. She has the same access to forgiveness and grace and mercy that we all have. And she has it, and yet while she wants to continue to have that forgiveness and grace and mercy, she does not offer it to others. And, well, there you go. That's the end of this report. Good luck, Joy. Good luck, Joy. Just hope that you don't ever get to a position where you fundamentally challenge someone's power higher up in the Wokeitarian hierarchy, because if they do, they'll take this clip and they'll use it against you to destroy you. So good luck. Good luck with moral supremacist purity. Good luck. let's get to our next story. Now, this story was I'll get to it. U.S. Census Bureau. That's the story that we're going to be talking about today. Census takes House seats from Dem states, gives to GOP. So CNN calls it gerrymandering, and I'm calling this video MSM accuses Census Bureau of gerrymandering after Dems lose and GOP gains. And this is a topic report. Census results, congressional seats is the title of the topic report. How clever of me. CNN, not happy with census results, calls it GOP gerrymandering. So this is from newsbusters.org. Census targeting states Biden won, GOP gains by gerrymandering. And this Nicholas Fondacaro gives us our excerpt with an on-screen headline that dubiously read, Census shifts 3 House seats from states Biden won. Frito, that's who they're calling Chris Cuomo, which, you know, I say with newsbusters, I would dial down the polemics. You don't need the polemics. It kind of undermines you. If you're going to be a newsbuster, try to be a little bit, a little bit less polemic-y. So, but you do you, boo. Frito came back from a commercial break projecting a suspicious tone. Did you hear about the Census Bureau and what the census is going to do? It's going to shift some of the seats this Congress. It's going to make a difference, especially for the left. The House is about to get real skinny, real fast, he warned his viewers. Flaunting his meager grasp of the subject matter, Fredo, Chris Cuomo, he does not like being called Fredo. There's a video of him willing to attack one of We the Poors because they dared call him Fredo. Just don't call these millionaires, billionaires, poors, or Fredos, or don't even dare speak against them. That's kind of the vibe you get from that video. So Chris Cuomo, a.k.a. Fredo, according to Newsbusters, that's the way they're phrasing it, began suggesting the Census Bureau was taking away blue states from President Biden and the Democrats. Of course, as you know, the Census Bureau uses its data to decide how many seats in each state gets in the House of Representatives and their electors for the Electoral College. Biden, Democratic states, or the states that he won, they're going to lose 3 states. Given that Democrats only have a 6-vote majority in the House, 3 states, 3 seats could matter, right? So then we get more headlines here. Early census results show Michigan losing congressional clout. That's from Michigan Radio. Alabamians' strong census response led to retention of all congressional districts. That's from alreporter.com. Census barely leads to a congressional loss for New York, from New York Times. Indiana will keep 9 congressional seats. That's from IndyStar.com. And they were hoping to gain a seat, but they didn't. And Illinois loses congressional seats as 2020 census data released from Embassy Chicago. Census shocker! No new congressional seats for Arizona, 12news.com. And finally from redstate.com, we have the reapportionment of congressional seats promises some surprises in the future. And I will say that Chris Cuomo would be, I'll just say that it's possible. It's not as possible. Generally speaking, the Republicans, they rest their vehicle of power on the Bill of Rights, on the ideational power of the Bill of Rights. Not that they consistently follow it, because they don't. Well, I would argue that they don't. But, so, Bill of Rights, rule of law, these are the type of ideational power, vehicles of power that they rely on for a variety of reasons, which I'm going to get into now. So I don't believe that as many of them would be as ready to believe the gerrymandering mythos when things don't go their way with the census, but I would believe that most of them would. Maybe not as significant a majority percentage as amongst the DNC, who do not have as their vehicle of power is not rule of law. Essentially, the vehicle of power of the DNC is essentially priest-kingism. And that is the idea of a certain group of elites having special knowledge, kind of a Gnostic politicism is what it is. Special knowledge that we, the poors, the plebeians, the uneducated, the non-experts don't have access to. So they rule through the personality and charisma of individuals, whereas the Republicans ostensibly seek to have our rule be set by standards outside of individual humans, ostensibly. Not that they consistently do that. And I can think of a case in point, even on our Freedomist page, where someone was commenting about, we had posted video regarding this shooting of this, I can't remember his first name right now, his last name is Brown, in which it seems more and more that the shooting is pretty unjustified. And then somebody put a link on there and said, well, look, the Fox News is reporting that he has this drug dealer rap sheet and multiple arrests, whatever. And that somehow should let you look at a situation and diminish the expectation of rule of law being applied. We've been talking, we outside of the DNC have been talking about the standard of free speech, which is the most offensive of us need the most protections, because if the most offensive isn't protected, in the end, none of us will be protected. King Bill will lose his authority. And so in this case, I overwhelmingly I see conservatives more than willing to believe, because somebody has a checkered past, that we should just dismiss this. And I understand that the DNC uses these things as weapons of war to divide Americans, to divide the poor, so they can convince them to surrender their liberties. But if you want to be consistent when it comes to the Bill of Rights, then you need to be consistent. And that means the most offensive of us need the most protections. Because if the most offensive of us, the serial criminal, if the serial criminal was complying and then still got killed, we should seek justice for that individual, because we're really seeking justice for ourselves. And I think I'll end that here on that note. Get to my next story here, which is, this one, I've seen other similar agencies making these moves, and I'm trying, so long as I see them, I'll highlight them. Homeland Security prepares to purge itself of non-DNC compliant employees. And this is from our Top Stories report, and that Top Stories report was titled, Homeland Security to Purge Non-DNC from Department Using Extremism Investigation as Cover. And I'm calling this video, Being Non-DNC-Orthodox Will Get You Fired If You Work for the Department of Homeland Security. You know, this is, I remember when the Iraq War was before the Iraq War was starting up, I was a lot younger then, and I was much more interested in the adventure than in the justice. I didn't really care about the Iraqis as people. I didn't really care much about people outside of America, even though intellectually, ideationally I did, but in terms of how I actually lived my life, I really didn't. So it was easy for me to look at human beings who might make a plea for us not to murder Iraqis as being extremist, as being terrorist. And to use those words, extremist, to use those words, terrorist, especially when the government was using those words and they were targeting people that I didn't like, that were threatening, that perceptively, not accurately maybe, but perceptively were threatening me. So I was all on board with the creation of the Department of Homeland Security. I was all on board with the Patriot Act. I was all on board with all of these methodologies of seeking to turn Americans against Americans because they had beliefs and values that we didn't share, that weren't orthodox. This was conservative orthodoxy, if you will, as opposed to woke orthodoxy or DNC. It's really DNC orthodoxy, because there is just like wokeness is a de facto religion that has multiple denominations. Almost all of them are fully in bed with the DNC, very coercive version of wokeness. Not all of them are, but in essence, most of them are. And so the new orthodoxy is no longer conservative orthodoxy. It's DNC woke orthodoxy. And so now anybody that falls outside of that orthodoxy is going to be called extremist, terrorist, seditionist, whatever list that you can come up with that will diminish a human's capacity to dare speak out against the authority that is. And to that end, the Department of Homeland Security, this partly the supreme, representing the supreme law of the land, is seeking to utilize these vehicles of power. That when I think of for me, vehicles of power are any beliefs, any habits that individuals can enter into with the hope of expanding their personal power, which for me is what I call apex existentiality. When they enter into these words like extremist and terrorist, they're adopting an ideological belief system that allows the state to define the orthodox at levels that go far beyond what the Bill of Rights parameters would allow the state to do. And I fell for it, and it was maybe about 2011, 2012, I began to shift away from that, and now I'm to the point where I've rejected all of the factionals that dominate this land. But before I did, I was certainly one of the enablers. And if you are one of the DNC acolytes and you imagine that the Homeland Security is doing anything but purging its department of the non-DNC, you're a fool. This isn't about protecting the United States of America from domestic threats from within, or from racism or bigotry or anything like that. Those are just, not that racism isn't real, not that bigotry isn't real, not that some people, even on the right, are actually quote-unquote seditionists, would actually seek to overthrow the government with violence, and for reasons that don't have to do with a direct violation of the Bill of Rights. But most of them are not. Most of them are just people. If you believe that abortion is wrong, that's outside the orthodoxy. Homeland Security will be able to target you. They'll be able to use, if you believe that we should have walls, that we should have walls protecting our borders from being overrun by human beings coming from abroad, well, that will put you in that category. So we accepted the power of the government to define extremist and define terrorist, and then allow human beings to lose their Bill of Rights that fell into these categories when it was on our side, and I was an hour then, the conservative side. But when now that you see that the government is no longer in the hands of the conservative Orthodox, now they're in the hands of the woke Orthodox, you see how those weapons of war can be turned so easily against you, and that's what's happening here. So from abcnews.com, they said Homeland Security launches review of extremism within the agency. The Department of Homeland Security on Monday announced an internal review to assess the threat of violent extremism from within the agency, part of a broader administration focus on domestic threats following the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. I saw some video, I forget who it was, Jack somebody or other. I didn't watch the video, but I saw the title, and it was a very excellent title. I should watch the video because the title really intrigued me, and it was that this was the new 9/11, and this is exactly it. January 6th is the new 9/11 for the woke. It's what the DNC woke. It's what they're going to use to convince we the poors, we the powerless, to hand over more of our powers with the hope that somehow the people who caused the problems in the first place will somehow end the problem. And that never works out. I guess I'm going to end it there. Get to our next story. This one's a fun story. That's a wonderful story. 500 million genetically altered mosquitoes let loose in Florida, and not everyone is happy. I'm going to call this video, 500 million genetically altered mosquitoes have upset Floridians after state releases them. Now, this is one of these really, well, I don't know what to make of this story. Maybe I'll just let you decide. So this is from our Future Headlines report, which is Floridians livid after officials let loose 500 million gene-modified mosquitoes. And the story is from Futurism.com. Residents furious at release of 500 million gene-hacked mosquitoes. I like their title. Now, I didn't say gene-hacked in my titles because I don't know the science involved in. I think hacked is a bit of a pejorative phrase, so I don't know whether this is actually a good or bad thing, but I do think it's a fundamental challenge. And certainly, it's a challenge if you've done this without consent of the people that you're doing this to, and it speaks to the mentality of the government as it moves more and more away from rule of law standards, where we have a king outside of us and outside of our daily operating system, so to speak. and over to priest-kingism, where we are governed by the charisma and credibility of individuals. And so their charisma and credibility is enough to set the fluctuating, constantly changing rule of law as opposed to the steady, predictable rule of law. So, from the excerpt here, written by Dan Robitsky, without realizing it, Donaldson had agreed to participate in a genetics experiment during which a British biotech company called Oxitec, and it's perfect that how this was achieved was they brought in a foreign power, in essence, a foreign business to do the bidding of an American government. That just makes it all the more rife for critique, I'll just say. I'll put it to you that way. So this company called Oxitec will release 500 million gene-hacked mosquitoes engineered to kill off the local bloodsucker population along a lengthy swath of the Florida Keys. Breeding and unleashing clouds of genetic engineered bugs sounds like science fiction, but it's already happening. Locally, some love the idea and others hate it. A fight which has turned ugly, with some residents even threatening to destroy Oxitec's equipment. Supporters say it's a new way to rid the area of annoying disease-spreading mosquitoes, but opponents are furious about what they describe as a biotech company coming in and strong-arming their community into serving as a petri dish for a poorly vetted gene-hacking experiment. I find this criminal that we are being bullied into this experiment, says Islamadora resident Megan Hall at a heated town council meeting in March. I find it criminal that we are being subject to this terrorism by our own Florida Keys Mosquito Control Board. See, there's that word, terrorism. Terrorism, one man's terrorist, another man's freedom fighter, as they say. I remember I used to hear that back in 2003, and I thought, you're a commie. Now I realize the error of my ways. Although you could be a commie and say it, but could not be a commie and say it too. Whatever commie is, that's a moving target as well. So this is an interesting story to me in that maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. It's kind of like what's going on with the vaccine. The vaccine, I'm not one of these people that thinks the vaccine is the mark of the beast and it's evil and we're all going to die and blah, blah, blah. And it's an evil operation by the government with direct malevolence intended. Although I wouldn't rule that out, because governments are capable of doing very, very horrible, horrible things to human beings in the name of preserving and extending their own personal power. When I say governments, I mean the small number of individuals that actually essentially control governments. So with that in mind, what we're looking at here is a situation where the government is willing to take experimentation on its population at a large scale. In the case of the vaccine, we're talking about 300 million human beings, 300 plus million human beings. A vaccine that has not been properly vetted, a vaccine that we have yet to understand the full ramifications of the long-term effects of this vaccine, a vaccine that is designed to stop an illness that I would argue certainly you should take seriously. It's much more serious than the flu, but it's not the bubonic plague. And I don't even know if it's in between bubonic plague and flu. I think it's closer to flu than bubonic plague, but it's still significantly more serious. So we should consider this. You should offer this opportunity, especially the more you are in a risk category for the vaccine, the more you should possibly consider taking the vaccine. The less at risk you are, the less you should consider it, at least until this thing has been vetted. And though we see some long-term effect studies on exactly what this vaccine may or may not do. In the case of the vaccine, it doesn't even offer full protection. There's no guarantee that you won't get sick again. So it's not even it's not a foolproof vaccination. It's not a foolproof protection against the vaccine itself. And in this instant, we're talking about genetically modifying mosquitoes and setting them loose. And they've been genetically modified to kill the bad mosquitoes. And we have no idea the long-term effect of what that genetic modification will do. You know the law of unintended consequences. You change one thing here, and it has an unintended consequence of changing something over there. These mosquitoes could turn out to be more of a threat to the environment and to the people than the mosquitoes that we're killing. And yet they're willing to make this experiment, and a government that is willing to do such things is a government that is operating under a priest-king parameter where they no longer feel that there's any real direct accountability to them and the people they serve. The United States of America emerged as a place of quote-unquote liberty, not because we were noble, but because the reality of power was such in our formation that the rank and file, we the poors, we had the means to wreak havoc on those that have, and they knew it. So this the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, was their compromise, was their allowance to diminish their own power, their own pursuit of their own apex existential power, as I call it, in a way that they were not admitting that they didn't have power. So they created this ideational construct that allowed them to diminish their own power. Well, that's gone, as we could see when you have experiments like this. Summer might bring long gas lines as shortages predicted. Normally what I do on this show is I try to highlight the stories that throughout the day, the previous day, are the most popular. And then I have some news stories that I put up. And usually I don't do anything with those news stories necessarily until the next show. But in this case, I'm going to put this one up there. It hasn't been released for long, so I don't know how much it will resonate with our audience in general, but I think it's very worth pointing out, and I don't want to alarm people or scare people. I don't know the degree to which we may or may not experience this, but I do think that it's prudent for you to take note, and if you can, take certain precautions going forward. Maybe make sure, especially if you have multiple cars, make sure your multiple cars are filled up to the gas. Make sure you consider rationing so that you cut down on the amount of trips that you take, so you don't have to go to the gas station as often as you have. But as the summer approaches here, maybe to the degree that you can, stock up on some gas. Don't go crazy. You don't need to go crazy, but yeah. Let's get to the story. This is gas shortage, tanker driver shortage. This is a topic report called Gas Shortage Expected This Summer as a Result of Truck Driver Shortage. And I'm going to call this video Gas Shortages Coming to a Summer Near You. And this is from CNN.com, gas shortage predicted this summer. There's an excerpt from it. Millions of people stuck at home for more than a year are expected to hit the road for much-needed post-pandemic vacations this summer. Good luck finding gas. Not that there's a looming shortage of crude oil or gasoline. Rather, it's the tanker truck drivers needed to deliver the gas to the stations who are in short supply. According to the National Tank Truck Carriers, the industry's trade group, somewhere between 20% to 25% of tank trucks in the fleet are parked heading into the summer due to a paucity of qualified drivers. At this point in 2019, only 10% of trucks were sitting idle for that reason. We've been dealing with a driver shortage for a while, but the pandemic took the issue and metastasized it, said Ryan Strebo, the executive vice president of the NTCC. It certainly has grown exponentially. And we'll get to a couple other headlines here related to this story. Potential gas distribution problems in the USA. Thoughts? And this is a quote on the Reddit thread. New article on CNN about a shortage of gas tanker truck drivers. Wow. A shortage of tanker truck drivers. Well, maybe gas tanker truck drivers. We'll say that. This would cause a blockade between oil companies and refiners on one side, gas retailers and everything downstream of them on the other side. Depending on what happens with gas retail prices, it could affect EV and other trucking stocks. From Sacramento.cbs.local, tracker shortage could lead to summer gas shortage. This is salon owners. Okay, I don't know why that. Okay, so somehow I got the wrong excerpt from there. It's about a salon owner's dog. We don't need that. From VOCM.com, seasonal transition to summer gas causing tightness with product at some pumps. And the Minister of Industry, Energy, and Technology is allaying fears fueled by speculation that the province is getting, this is not obviously in America, this is I believe Canada here, but still connected, getting low on gas. Nothing could be further from the truth, says Andrew Parson. Gas shortage at some Chevron stations appear to be getting better. This is ReviewJournal.com. The situation for gas stations, Chevron gas stations across the Well, that's where I live, Lehigh Valley. That's why I said that. The Las Vegas Valley is getting better. Earlier this week, several Chevron stations ran out of fuel products or only had diesel and or premium gas available. The company's main pipeline that serves the valley, the Calvetnev pipeline, operated by Kinder Morgan, saw operational constraints. Chevron stations across Las Vegas Valley report gas shortage from 8newsnow.com. Rental cars in short supply due to computer chip shortage. Gas shortages also causes issues. So this is from Fox5Vegas.com. And then finally, gas shortage at some pumps reported in Las Vegas, also from ReviewJournal.com. So initially they said here that's getting better, but initially, hey, gas shortage at some pumps reported in Las Vegas. And I think that's about it. I don't think there's anything more to say about this. So this is just a little heads up. I don't think that you need to get panicky or greatly worried it's going to be some sort of horrible 1979 gas lines, but stock up a little bit. Don't go crazy with your stocking up, but just make sure at least that your cars are full as long as you can, and maybe cut down on driving that is non-essential if you can leading up to this. Hopefully, it'll be much ado about nothing. Simon & Schuster employees turn on company over publishing of Mike Pence memoir. This is the Wokeness that insist that you have to have the right type of rigid following of the orthodox world of Wokeness, bought for and promoted by and enabled by the DNC, the Democrat National Corporation, and it's where my brother Bill and I, he's the editor of the Freedomist, my identical twin, we're now referring to them as the corpo state nationalists, because that's what they are. They're a corpo state, but a particular type of corpo state, which is a nationalist corpo state, and they demand adherence to the right ideology. And to that end, we have Simon & Schuster employees that are turning on their own company because their company dares to publish and promote the memoir of Mike Pence. And Mike Pence is too far outside of their orthodoxy for a publishing company to publish. Now remember, publishing companies are the very, I guess you could say, the flagships of free speech. And these people that work for a flagship of free speech are calling for no free speech. Dude. So there you go. That's the situation that we're in. I had a little bit of panic there. I thought I saw that my audio wasn't going out and that I had recorded this whole show with no sound. That would be devastating. Devastating. But that's not the case. We're still working. We have contact, folks. We have contact. So, that was a scare. Sorry about that. Mike Pence book, Simon & Schuster staff protest. So there's a topic report that I'm calling Simon & Schuster staff protest over own company for daring to publish Mike Pence memoir. And I'm calling this video Mike Pence book triggers Simon & Schuster employees. Triggers. They're triggered. You can't have uncomfortable views and perspective that could somehow hurt my feels, because if you do that, never mind that your actions also hurt the feels of others, but it's a hierarchy of feels. The feels that are most valued and should be protected are the feels that align with this very narrow orthodox moral supremacist ideology that the DNC and the billionaires of America are utilizing as their vehicle of power to end competition. So they no longer have to worry about elections or markets. They can just control, and we will just take it, and then they'll be able to make us in their perverse upside down Christ image. So this is from The Blaze. Here's an excerpt here from Breck Dumas. Employees of Simon & Schuster have delivered a petition demanding the publishers stop all deals with Trump administration officials, wherein they accuse the firm of perpetuating white supremacy. My gosh, are you kidding me? By going forward with a book by former Vice President Mike Pence. According to an exclusive report from the Wall Street Journal, Simon & Schuster CEO Jonathan Karp was aware that a petition was circulating when he announced internally last week that a memoir by Pence would move forward despite pushback from some employees. All told, 216 Simon & Schuster employees signed the petition, which equates to roughly 14% of the company's workforce. They also solicited the signatures of another 3,500 outsiders, some of whom were I gotta go see that. Some were what does that mean? I gotta see that. Some of whom were well-known. Stop text censorship. Great. Were well-known black writers. Okay, I don't get that. What does that mean if they're well-known? So if you're a well-known black writer and you're signing on board with this whole diminishment of human beings because you're afraid of this alleged, I mean, white supremacism is a real thing. All supremacisms are. There's black supremacisms. There's all kinds of supremacisms out there. It's majorityism in general, and majorityism is a local phenomenon by and large. So wherever there is a majority in any kind of locality, there will be some form of, and whatever the majority is around, whether it's a religion, whether it's any type of belief at all, whether it's a race or genders or whatever it might be, there's always this tendency for majorityism. Majorityism is just the effort to make sure that you hold on to your majorities. It's a worldwide phenomenon that has existed throughout all of human history, and it's not unique to any one group. The Wokeitarians will have you believe that somehow white people invented this majorityism. But that's just a bald-faced lie that flies in the face of common sense and really historical understanding. But it is a convenient weapon of war to be able to use against your detractors. And for black writers to hop on board to this authoritarianism that will diminish them all, will diminish all of us, them included, is well, it's kind of grievous. Because it is our liberality. It is King Bill. King Bill constantly prodded the parts of our government that wanted to deny King Bill. It's because of King Bill, the Bill of Rights, and the concepts, the idea of individual liberty, where individuals are sacred in and of themselves. That's where this idea comes from. Theoretically, this idea comes from. And if you're going to diminish King Bill, and that's what you're doing here, you're diminishing King Bill in the name of ending threats, then you are denying the very king that freed you in the first place. King Bill freed the slaves. King Bill freed women and allowed women to vote. King Bill is what has been working on our hearts and minds and confronting the way that we treated gay people, the way we treated transgendered people, the way we treat human beings that might fall outside of our imagined orthodoxies. And we live in a pluralistic land where everyone is a sacred person in and of themselves. And that's what challenged us. And now that all of these folks, to some degree, have been freed by King Bill, now they want to kill King Bill because they want to kill competition themselves. Once they got in the gate, got inside the Capitol, so to speak, they want to shut the gate behind them and kill the very king that freed them. And that's essentially what you have going on here. Just some of the other headlines here real quick. 216 employees demand Simon & Schuster cut ties with Trump administration authors from Accuses. Mike Pence book to publish despite Simon & Schuster staff demands from IndyStar.com. Simon & Schuster president commits to publishing Mike Pence books despite staffers' demands from TheWrap.com. Mike Pence signed a deal with the publisher that dumped Josh Hawley from TheFederalist.com. Don't be like Mike, National Opinion, Tucson.com. Another opinion here. Mike Pence memoir intrigues those awaiting from DailyIllini.com. And finally, hundreds of Simon & Schuster employees demand Mike Pence memoir not be published. And that is Politics USA, one of the worst. Politics USA and Crowder, they're two peas in the polar pod. So this is extra coverage. We would be done with the show at this point, but instead, we're going to do this last feature. How the powerful and rich are using woke as a vehicle of power to control the many. Woke authoritarianism serves a corrupt ruling class and is oppressive to all. And I'm going to call this video The Tyrannical Authoritarian Usefulness of Wokeness to Our Masters. Now, I'm not going to read all of this article because it's very long, and I don't have time to read all of it. But I'm going to read a significant portion of it, and I encourage you to go and read all of it for yourself. I'm going to read maybe the first few paragraphs and maybe the end paragraphs for you here. So The title that my brother gave this article, Bill Collier, is the editor of the Freedomist. Woke authoritarianism serves a corrupt ruling class and is oppressive to all. The woke authoritarianism being, and this is my brother writing, the woke authoritarianism being used as a vehicle of more power and wealth by our depraved and corrupt ruling class of corporate and government cronies, and conceals their true corpo-state nationalist ideology. And this is the phrase, like I said in an earlier story from the show, and if you haven't watched the whole show and you're watching an excerpt, be sure that you click down below because there's a link to the whole show below. Woke authoritarianism appropriates real concerns about racial equality and equity to sow division and hate. It plays the tribe of the left and the tribe of the right against each other in an artificial, manufactured conflict that transfers ever more wealth and power from the people to the ruling class. And I want to add that the people in the quote-unquote tribe of the left and the tribe of the right, the ranks and files, the poors, we poors, and you're poor, one of the most basic parameters. This isn't the only one, but it's really, this one's the hardest core of them, is if you quit working today and you could no longer survive, you're one of the poors. So that's where we're at here. So we have far more in common with one another, whether, even me, I'm not in either one of these tribes, but I have far more in common with both of the members of this tribe, whether you're left or right, than I do any of the authoritarians that all of you seek to get the legitimacy and approval from. So we'll continue with what my brother has to say. This woke authoritarianism is perpetuated by the minions of the ruling class, useful idiots who may genuinely be fooled. These minions include the corrupt press, corrupt bureaucrats who put party and or parochial self-interest ahead of public interest, many to whom academics and entertainers, and many to most academics and entertainers, and many or most corporate leaders. The counteraction by grifters, talking heads, politicos, and useful idiots on the right. These are people like Steven Crowder that you'll notice that I have a lot of bad things to say about, because he's one of the worst offenders in this area. Politics USA is the version on the left. Including their corrupt news outlets is reactionary swill. It's the tickling of ears is what it is. It's false prophets tickling your ears with what you want to hear. It is anger at the wrong people, and it tends to focus on denying that real problems of racism, bigotry, and intolerance exist and need to be addressed. And it totally works into the hands of the authoritarian right-left, because then they can look and see, we told you, see. It spins in the face of the actual disenfranchised and disadvantaged who face real discrimination. The goal of the ruling class, and albeit unwittingly their minions, is to keep us at each other's throats while they sneak away with the prize. That prize is our freedom, wealth, and happiness sacrificed at the altar of their craven lust for monopoly power and control over their fellow human beings, which is the whole history of the world. It's all wrapped around these, I call them, not that all psychopaths are bad, but all government psychopaths are bad. So these government psychopaths, that's the story. The governed being coerced by the governing in as least expensive a way as possible for the governing. We must say no to this kind of dangerous and extremist thinking. We will not defeat racial bigotry or any bigotry with more bigotry and hate. All of this will do is empower the corporate state nationalists and their authoritarian agenda. The problem isn't the left. It is the ruling class. The left are not truly desirous of the dystopian nightmares of authoritarianism and monopolistic power and control. The ruling class are using control. The ruling class are using them and their legitimate concerns to lay the foundations for. So, yeah, you're not going to get what you think you're going to get if you're part of the quote unquote left. It's like I was speaking in a story earlier, when I was on board with the Department of Homeland Security and Patriot Act and the government using terrorists and extremists to define basically anybody on the left, because that's kind of what they did. Yeah, I did so thinking that they would never use these weapons of war against me, but I was a fool. To be clear, the notion of all white people are racist and all people of color are moral saints is comparison in comparison is racism itself and bigotry. Never mind your racist definition of bigotry, which is what the Wokeness have, a racist definition of racism. And this is something he highlighted here from whoever Grace Culture were refugees. Grace is for you, at Grace is for you. I don't know who this is on Twitter. KKK, your skin color tells me all I need to know. Once I knew your color, I know exactly what to think of you and how to treat you. Woke, your skin color tells me all I need to know. Once I know your color, I know exactly what to think of you and how to treat you. And it's more than color of your skin. It's also your sexual preference and your biological identity. And I'll just read to the very end here, these last few paragraphs, and I encourage you to click on the link below to read the whole article. Our goal is to ensure as best we can fairness and equity, which is justice according to God's righteousness, which is rooted in love and the inherent equal value of every single human being in his eyes. We desire to see every person of any people group, of any race or ancestry or shared socio-cultural identity in every economic class have a fair and equitable shot at happiness, fulfillment, and prosperity, and to live in peace and freedom. We know real racism and bigotry exist, and this woke authoritarianism is not in any way helping anything. It is causing an increase in bigotry and hate and justifying violence and ultimately totalitarianism. It is being used by the ruling class and their hidden ideology of corporate state nationalism to oppress us all, right and left, of every race, ethnicity, sex, gender, and the like. It is bad for everyone and only empowers and enriches the few at the expense of our freedom, wealth, and happiness. It is anti-poors, it is anti-disenfranchisement, it is pro-authoritarianism, it is pro-orthodoxy defined by priest kings who remain unaccountable to the people because of their very status as being priest kings. This is the return of the Bronze Age, folks. They want to end the axial age, the age where we began to develop ideas about wisdom outside of our temporalities defining our governance, and they want to return us to a temporal type of governance in which priest kings can act on the fly to modify the world around us to make us in their image rather than allow God's image to emerge within us all consensually. All right, so that is finally the end of the show. A little bit longer here because of the fact that I had an extra report, which I will do with some degree of regularity. And at some point, I think my brother will be getting on the schneid. He's doing a lot of stuff at the back end for the Freedomists to build us up and working with people to get stuff working so we can get more folks to sign up for our email list and give us the economic support we need to be able to sustain and grow our efforts. And our efforts in the Freedomists is fundamentally, and we have multiple efforts, but the core purpose, the core design is absolutely to serve and it's going to be an imperfect model because we're imperfect by our very natures, but an imperfect model, but a model that seeks after perfection, so to speak. An imperfect model of Christians operating within the civic. How do we witness God's truth such as we can understand it through the civic, in the civic? And we are choosing to use news as the vehicle that allows us to do that. And to that end, we ask you, if you like what we do, to support us, go to freedomist.com, and you be sure to click on one of these little thingies that says, hey man, support us, yay. Another way you can support us is just go here to buy the book, The Capitalist Manifesto by Ralph Benko and William R. Collier Jr. And William R. Collier Jr., Bill Collier, that is my identical twin and the editor of The Freedomist. They wrote this book, forwarded by George Gilder, and if you go on to there, you can click on the link, and then you'll go to the Amazon site where you can purchase this book for $14.95, and you could read in The Capitalist Manifesto, The End of Class Warfare Towards Universal Affluence, a more total version of capitalism according to these two, which is a capitalism that has a morality, that has virtue, a capitalism that isn't run by human beings that have this sense that they're outside of the system and that they're above the system, or a sense that the individuals that they employ or serve are not sacred in and of themselves, and as such you have a certain obligation to trend towards consensuality in all of your interactions. So the free hand of the market that Adam Smith describes is not a free hand if it is a hand that operates coercively. That's not the free market. That is something else. That is That is, I'm calling it market authoritarianism is what it really is. The capitalism of today, and that's capitalism that many people, especially on the right, champion, is essentially market authoritarianism. And so with that, I'll end this episode. We'll see you tomorrow about the same time, about 7 o'clock. Generally speaking, I'll get as close to 7 as possible. Sometimes I get a little longer because, like today, I was at 7:05 or something because I had a little technical problem. But it'll be somewhere between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. when we'll do these shows. So with that, I